Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Iheartchkns podcast. I'm Corey Eichelberger, coming to you from a southwest corner of the Twin Cities, where it's a little bit gloomy out there, and so my light's a little closer, so there's some shadows back here, but I'm not going to fix it. I had to already start over because I forgot to print something, so, just kind of plow forward on this one. Welcome back, because I was on vacation, and so many of you liked the podcast I did with Matt. Isn't he a wonderful guy? He's so kind and so creative, and I am so blessed to have him as a friend. I mean, I really am. And he has become an amazing sweater knitter in just the last few years. Every week he's bringing out a new sweater at Knitting Group, I feel like. And so I was really happy to have him here. He did leave a couple of sweaters at home last time, and he finished his the one that he was working on the podcast. So I told him that before he and I go to Rhinebeck together, or right after we get back, we'll do another episode with him and have him show you his new sweater and maybe his other Rhinebeck sweater, and then the couple that he had left at home. And he said he would be willing, so that's great. Someone commented that they would like to see his friend Mark's sweaters, and so would I, but I don't know Mark. I've never gone to Matt's men's knitting group. It isn't that it's a closed group to women, but sometimes I prefer to kind of let that stand alone, and I think that sometimes they would too, be able to just have the men in that group. I know that Matt is really willing to sit with 12 to 18 women every Thursday, and sometimes the topics are not things that are of interest to him. And so I think it's nice that he can have his own kind of men's group where just the men meet. And anyway, all of that to say, Matt's coming back, and I haven't met all of Matt's friends. But if I do meet Matt's friends, or if any of Matt's friends are watching this podcast or watched him on the podcast, which might have happened actually, I bet the men's knitting group watched this. So hi, Matt's men's knitting group. And you are interested in coming on and talking with me, I would love that. I would love to have a male perspective. I would love to design a men's sweater. I think I would have the skill set to do that, but most men are not as colorful as I am, and so maybe wouldn't appreciate my aesthetic. Might have to tone it down a little, especially like today, right? Let me say hello to a whole bunch of people today, because I'm doing two podcasts kind of, back. So Carla, Kelly, Angela, Amber, Barb, Mary B, and Melanie, who are my friends in real life. And happy birthday, Melanie. It's her birthday tomorrow. And I sent her a really funny gift, so I can't wait for her to get it in the mail. Maybe she won't appreciate it as being as funny as I did. Anyway, and then welcome to PJ, Amy Blandford, Carol, Rabich, Becky, Whitt, Irene, Nancy Morales, Helen Paxford, Lisa Rowe, Michelle, Rudy, Gayle S, Sharon, Senour, Stephanie Haberman, Denise, Norber, Bonnie Van DeMark, Zoe Leask, Linda Gesling, hi Linda, Rebecca Catania, Becky Whitt. Oh, I have her on here twice. Sorry, Becky. You know what? I think you commented twice last week asking me another question. Sorry about that. Beth Hoskins, Danielle Young, Jerri Brown, Amy Mikelson, Sally Conrad, Kathy B, Bareiria, Iheartchkns, Julie Hertel, Sharon Noonan, Carolyn McLaughlin, Diana the River Falls Plantation podcast. And good luck, Diane, on your new job. She took a new job. Olivia Menke, Beverly Fouth, Anna Bing, Kathy Cotswold, Rachel Weisenstein, Steen. Every time I think I before E, I have to do my English teacher rhyme in my head. Sorry, Rachel. Rachel, from now on, I'm going to say Rachel, and you're going to know who you are, because I get it. I mix it up every time for you. Peggy Gilbert, Jacqueline Fitzgerald, Christy Crane, Melissa Brown, Emma Butcher, hi Emma, Marilyn Wallace, Peggy Bork, Patricia Lau. It ends in X. I don't have a rule for that. Patricia, PM me on Instagram or Ravelry or YouTube and tell me how to say your last name. Rita Wood, Rula Tornariti, Michelle, Melanie Cahoon, Peggy Organ, Kim Ray, the Naisha, I looked at that one too, Chris S., Barbara Hermsmeyer, Robin Gasser, Natasha Helslop, Knitting Grammy, Carol, who is third hobby on Ravelry, Kim Kovalchuk, Carol in South Carolina, and Victoria. Briefly touch on my health issue. I'm much better. I don't know how much I want to say because, you know, medical issues can be graphic, but I had a bowel obstruction or partial blockage, and this is how I explained it to my knitting group. If you have a river and there's a big boulder that falls down into your river, then the river has to back up or be uncomfortable until it can go around the river. And then once the water can go around the river might still not be in its right channel, so it can be painful, but eventually the river can, Cody, erode away some of the boulder. So there you go. It took a while, a long while, for me to feel better. Most of vacation was not feeling great, but I'm doing much better. Let's just put it that way. Okay? Okay, I just got interrupted by a phone call from the pharmacy where we don't have a prescription because we tried to pick it up on the way home from church today. They didn't have anything, and now they called again. I'll have to call them because something's going on. They left their phone number like 5 times. I just wasted like 5 minutes. Anyway, welcome to everyone to the podcast, and thank you. So many of you reached out this week, and I just wanted to say hello to all of you. I wish I could say like hi in a meaningful way to each one of you, because some of you leave some really nice and thoughtful comments, and I always respond, and I know Matt went out and responded to a bunch of them this week. So if you didn't get a reply, or you don't have notifications on YouTube to your email so that you know that you got a reply, go over there and look, because we made sure that we said hello to lots of people and made, you know, comments back to you so that we can feel like we have more of a dialogue, because I feel like you guys reach out to me and then all I can do is read your name. So I just like to say hello to more of you or get to know more of you. Anyway, let's do what I've been reading, because I have a few things to show you because of vacation. So this week what I listened to was Dear Mrs. Bird, which was, I always print the Audible page so you can see how many stars it got. It's by A.J. Pierce, and it was really good. Really good. London, 1940. The war effort is going on. She wants to be a reporter. The newspaper calls her for a job. She goes, and it's not the job she thought it was. It's very interesting. The woman that she ends up working for is like an Dear Abby, kind of, for the magazine, and she gets herself in some trouble. I really liked it. It was 9 hours and 48 minutes. It came out in 18. It got 4.5 stars out of 447 ratings on Audible. And that's kind of what I look at. What are the stars? And then how many people have actually rated it. It got, 5 stars from me in all the categories. I thought it was really well read. The story was engaging, was not a typical war story. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. Dear Mrs. Bird. I think it's on a lot of hot right now lists. And then I finished, while I was on vacation, this book, which has been on my bedside table for years, I think. Adventures in Yarn Farming. And it's just wonderful. It is a story by Barbara Perry, who she and her husband lived in New York City, and they decided to quit their corporate jobs and move to a farm. And the photography is just beautiful. it's told in the 4 seasons, and then she has just lovely pictures throughout of her flock and her fields and the yarn that she produces. She's a spinner she also knits. It was an easy read. At the end of each chapter, she provides either a recipe or a pattern. So it is a pattern book. So here, I'll show you the one here that came up. The Sundance scarf came up. And they are designed by people other than herself. So she must have reached out to some people in the industry to do some of that with her. I read a season every night before I went to bed while we were on vacation, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was wonderful. She also grows lavender, and they have a shearer that comes, so she tells all those stories. It's a soft story. Do you know what I mean? There are hardships, but it's just really easy to read. Came out in 2013. I don't think it came out in paperback, but it might have. It's by Roost Books. Anyway, it's lovely. Definitely a coffee table book because of the pictures. So pictures on almost every page. I don't know that there's rarely a page that doesn't have some type of picture. So I would highly recommend that. And I don't read books very often anymore, and it was really a pleasure to read. I miss reading, and I could read more, but I choose knitting. I always choose knitting over reading, so then I turn my Audible books on. Okay, the last book I finished was called White Dresses, and it's a memoir of love and secrets, mothers and daughters, by Mary Flum Peterson. And it came out in 2015. I was going through my my Audible wish list, and it was, back in there. And so I thought, oh yeah, this sounds like something that's interesting. She is an award-winning television producer. She was with Good Morning America, and this is the story of her growing up, and her mother mostly, and father. But I'm not giving too much away because I think most of this is in the description box. Her father is gay, and so leaves her mother eventually, and her mother becomes a hoarder. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. There's a lot of psychological stuff, a lot of depression, but she's telling a story of a mother who wasn't always present, and had her own issues. I found it really slow going at first. Have you ever read one of those books where you're like, nah, I'm not going to finish this, right? Like, no, I'm not going to finish it. Then you read a little bit more, and you read a little bit more. So it must be just engaging enough to keep you going. And then by the time I got halfway through, I was like, okay, I'm all in. I want to know the rest of the story. I'm enjoying this much more. So I don't know if it was just a slow start or if I just wasn't connecting with her character, her family, and the problems that they had. There's a lot of poverty in parts of it. There are a number of brothers and sisters, and they weren't always well taken care of. Their emotional and physical needs weren't always met. So trigger warning to anyone who might have that going on. But I think if you are a person who might not have a close personal relationship with your mother, this might be okay for you. You might like knowing that other people have similar issues and whatever moving forward with parents and all of that. So then she eventually starts talking about her journalism background and going to college, and her mom was going to be a nun, and so went to the convent and then was not treated well there. Then eventually, there's a lot to this book. It's only 9 hours and 23 minutes, but a lot happened, and I wouldn't give it the highest rating of all the books that I've ever done, but I did end up enjoying it in the end. So White Dresses, she talks about christening gowns, prom dresses and bridal dresses throughout. So the white dresses that women wear, mostly women, wear throughout their lives. So those are the books that I read this week. Let's do a little giveaway. On the last podcast, Matt showed one of his bags, and so he left one for me to give away. And I cannot tell you how generous this is, because Matt's bags are not inexpensive, and they're large. So I'm going to hold this up to the size of my head, right? They're a big bag. He's using a lot of material. He has to buy the shirts. So he, in addition to the cost that he has in the zipper and the lining, he is also purchasing shirts, which sometimes to get a fun shirt, he spends more money at the thrift stores to get those. And then he puts there's a little stitch marker on here with his MCG, Multi-Crafty Guy Makes. That's his Etsy shop. Here is the card. That's a little better. So I'm going to give this away to one of my viewers. The pockets, of course, work, so you can put things in there. You're going to go to my Ravelry group, and that's where I'm going to do the drawing from. It's the easiest way for me to do it, and podcasting takes a lot of time and energy, so it just has to be easier for me. Sorry if that's a pain for you, but I want you to go to the Ravelry group and then tell me your favorite thing about fall. It is my favorite season. I just can't wait for it to come. We saw a few leaves turning on trees this morning, and my husband said, I think that tree's a little premature on turning, but look at how pretty it is. And I said, oh, I can't wait for all the trees to turn, and it's my palette of colors. I love going into fall. So tell me your favorite thing about fall, your favorite childhood memory about fall, your favorite fall recipes. Oh, I saw one today for pumpkin cake. I was like, yes, oh my gosh. It was a Weight Watchers recipe. I follow someone called WW Pound Dropper on Instagram, and she's a Weight Watchers person. But the reason that I follow her, and I was on Weight Watchers off and on. I was a lifetime member for a while. Back in the day when I would give anything to weigh now what I weighed then, when I thought, gosh, I had so much weight to lose. Not. We've all been there. I'll wait till you hear about the next book I'm reading. But she posts recipes. And so I follow a lot of people who post healthy recipes. I like being motivated every now and then in my Instagram feed when I'm scrolling through knitting projects to have a recipe. So I follow the Inspiralize lady, Inspiralized by Allie. She's in New York City, and she posts a ton of recipes, and almost all of her stuff is quite healthy. I follow a couple of other people who do healthy food choices just because it inspires me to have, when I'm scrolling through and I see a chicken stir fry, I go, oh, I haven't made chicken stir fry for a while. That would be a good thing for me to make for supper this week, right? So I do follow quite a few more healthy. Well, they're not all healthy. They don't all look healthy, but they all look delicious. That's who I follow. People who have delicious looking food. I like to cook, I like to bake, so it's just inspiring for me. But tell me your favorite fall recipe, your favorite fall memory. I would love it if there would be some fun recipes in the group. So, and I added my books from this time to the Ravelry group under the Audible book recommendations. The top post is my post, and every time I add books to the podcast, I add them there. So you can go back and just get the list of all the audiobooks that I've talked to and what episode it was. So if you go, oh, she talked about that book, I can't remember which one it was, you could go back to that list. And then people add, weekly in the audiobook recommendation list. So if you just want to read through those, I think there are 4 or 5 pages of audiobook recommendations out there already right now. Okay, great. Let's do the sweater of the week. Here it is. It's got a little shadow. I'm not sure why. It's probably because it's gloomy, but best I'm going to do here. I have it backwards because the front there's nothing, well, in my class I show the front and people are like, yeah, there's nothing going on there. And then I turn it around, I'm like, party in the back. So this is the Leaflet sweater by Cecily Glowick McDonald, and it comes from First Fall issue of Knitty 2011. So it's an oldie, but it's free. And here it is. So it's in Nitty, pattern is free, and there's your clue right there to what the front of it looks like. It's an open front sweater with a ribbed band going up and all the way around the neck. Well, in 2011, I was not a fond of that style of sweater that was open. I prefer to have a cardigan that closes, like this one is not one of my favorites. This Que Sera sweater. Yeah, it's all over lace. I had trouble getting row gauge, so my sleeves didn't fit in my sleeve hose very well, so I had to make my sleeves taller. And but yeah, it's a bright yellow cotton. It's a cotton sweater, so it was a fun one to knit. But you have a bad memory after you knit a sweater that you struggle with, because there's nothing wrong with the sweater. It's perfectly fine, but I don't wear it very often because I had trouble with it. I couldn't get the sleeves to fit in like I liked to fit me well, and when I eventually got them, then I still have that kind of bad memory. Bad memory. Tell me this week if you have any. The kids are swimming in the pool, which we have a new swimming pool right across the street, and putting it in, and now they have a temporary fence up around it and big dirt mounds, but the kids are swimming because they just got their pool. So I don't blame them at all for swimming in it, but it's distracting. And whenever I look out there during the day, I think, oh, that pool looks so nice. Anyway, let's move on. Details, okay? It's considered Aran weight, but it's just 15 stitches to 4 inches. It's mostly done in stockinette and on a US size 10 needle. So I changed the weight of the yarn just slightly. I had what I would more call a heavy worsted as opposed to an Aran weight. I had a really soft yarn. It's just a superwash merino that I really liked. And the finished measurements of the chest are 31.5 to 50.75. So there's a pretty nice range there. And it is, the suggested yarn is Quince & Company, Osprey. So that was, those are the details. All right, and then you get to do this really nice little piece up the back. It's a top down. I should have read the rest of those. It's a written pattern. It has buttonholes. There's like a 1 button center front button on it. I think I didn't do it that way, so I'm going to show you in a minute. Short sleeve, raglan, front fastening, cropped. I didn't do that either. How many does she have? She has 3 triangles down the back, and I have 5, because since my row gauge was off and I knew I was changing the gauge of the sweater, I knew that I would have to do an extra one to make it crop. So my 4th leaf probably makes it the length that hers was, but then I added a 5th leaf at the bottom here just to get the length I wanted. And so this is what I want to talk about today a little bit, is altering a pattern. Turn this around. There we go. Got it. I altered the pattern to close up the front. So when you look up close at the button band on this right here, it's quite wide. I'd say maybe it was 3 inches wide. So I took that number from the circumference, and that's how many stitches I added when I cast on at the front. So I just added those stitches all the way, on the neck, and I was going back and forth, and I figured out the gauge and added the 3 inches here. And then when I just knitted all the way down until I got to the bottom, and then I added the same detail that was on the back on the front, because I had this extra 3 inches of knitting right here. And so I thought it was pretty plain. There wasn't much going on the front of the sweater at all. And then that way the sweater closed in the front for me, and I added the buttons, and then this one, of course, they're sewn shut, so I just pull it on over my head. But that's all I did to adjust for that front piece, and it worked out. The neck is a little more square than it is round because I added those on, and there were not short rows in the back neck shaping for this sweater, because you were going to do that leaf in the back and then pick up to go up and around that whole back neck with that ribbing, which I watch people on podcasts who are knitting sweaters like this now, with the big shawl collars and the big 3 inches of ribbing or 2 inches of ribbing, or just even a button band, and that can really slow people down when you have that whole button band to pick up and around that neck. People can get stalled out. So I would caution knitters who are doing sweaters for the first time, who feel like sweaters take them forever, to pick a sweater that would have that kind of finishing on it. I love that kind of sweater. I'm just saying that it can be, you get done with the body, and if the body's going to take you a long time, and then you have an additional several weeks worth of work and knitting to do because you've got that giant button band to do. It can be very flattering and very pretty. But that is how I decided to change this particular sweater, is to add the 3 inches in the front, add the leaf on the bottom, and then add, or just leave the back the same. So go back to this. It's a little wrinkle right there from when I took it out of the closet, but yeah, I think it's pretty. I liked doing the leaf all the way down, and since it was short sleeved, that makes it a little quicker. So there's a leaflet sweater. I'm going to swap this out for the shawl. Okay, before I start on the shawl, I want to go back and finish telling you about the sweater that I'm wearing, because I didn't. So this is the Que Sera by Kirsten Kapoor, and it is also a free pattern on Knitty, and that's how it looks like. So I made So this sweater is meant to button up the front, and mine is open, and I have it closed today with this little Tix trinket. I usually put this on with this sweater to hold the fronts forward, so that it doesn't become a belly, boobs, and butt sweater. You know what I'm talking about, right? We've talked about that before, where this part of your sweater, because you have a large chest, falls back and falls open on the sides. So I like to have this on there. It keeps it. So here's the gal who makes them. Tix Trinkets. She's on Etsy. She's usually at ZK in the marketplace, and her daughter is Katie, JetGirl1313, who used to have the Knittin' on the Fly podcast. It is a worsted weight cotton sweater. It calls for blue sky fibers, worsted cotton. It came out in March of 2010. Like I said, I didn't knit it until probably, I don't even know, 2015 or 16. It had been in my queue forever as something to knit. I really liked the all over lace look of it for a summer cotton sweater. It is knit bottom up. It's considered a bracelet sleeve. It has buttonholes. It's seamed. It has a bit of a scoop neck, set-in sleeves, worked flat, written pattern. The sizes go from extra small to 3X, which is, does she have the, I know she doesn't have the busts on the front page of Ravelry, the bust sizes, but that's still a pretty large range, I would say. And it's from Knitty. So there you go. Que Sera as an additional freebie today. Now we'll do the shawl. The shawl this week is called Daybreak. It's an oldie but a goodie from Stephen West. So here is the picture. Way back when. And it is written in 3 sizes, and that's kind of, not common for a shawl pattern. Small, medium, large, anywhere from 335 to 765 yards. It's in fingering weight yarn, 23 stitches to 4 inches. There are slipped stitches. It is a crescent shape. It is a written pattern. And I will take pictures of both the sweater and the shawl this week to make sure that I can insert them in the podcast so you can see them up close and personal. And the description on this is Daybreak is a semicircular shawl featuring clear graphic stripes that echo a rising sun. The generous wingspan allows the fabric to drape comfortably around your shoulders and neck. There is plenty of room to play with color in the 3 sections of this arched shawl. And then Pearl Break is the garter stitch variation. And I watched a podcast recently where someone had knit Pearl Break. I don't remember who it was. Anyway, I watch so much TV and so many podcasts that, anyway. So these are the slip stitches that happen in the shawl. And when you hold the shawl upside down, it does look like it has the pink on the bottom on the horizon and then the vertical rays of the sun going out. I knit mine in pink and orange, but then my contrast color was variegated here. So it kind of changes colors all the way down, which is uncommon for some of them, although some people did them in a gradient, but mine looks a little bit different than some other people's because of that. There we go. So now you get the center back here, just like that. The big pink section, which is kind of a half circle, and then every time you're coming across on this row doing your 2 rows of stripe, you're slipping that stitch up, and that's how those run. So super simple, very easy to execute, and you get a lot of bang for your buck. It's a very large shawl, and then it's got an interesting kind of a garter bind off, if I remember, or I did a garter bind off. So I often wear mine anchored, you know how I've shown you, anchor it over your shoulder by tucking it up here over the back and then bringing this piece round and down, or this can go up high around the corner. But I had a friend make me a closure back, you know, when I first made this, and it just happened to match this shawl perfectly. And it is really pretty. I'm futzing with it because it's got fun fur on it, and the fun fur covers up the beautiful little, I just took it out of my, I'll get it fixed here for all of you. Okay, here's my little fluff ball. Isn't that cute? And look at how awesome it looks on here. Oh, turn just a little bit more, Corey. Isn't that cute? So I will often put that, wrap it twice around my neck, or start with the short end and then use this, because this is how this is made. It has a magnet on the back. So this person just bought one of those magnets, Michael's or Joann's or whatever. They glued some ribbon yarn and some fun fur down with a jeweled pin in the middle, just glued that on there. I can feel that there's some glue in there around here, and then covered the back with a piece of felt, glued that on, and then all you have to do is just slip that under there. And I could have put it under both, because it's definitely a sturdy enough magnet to make that happen. So there you go. Christmas gifts for everybody. Make some people some magnet. You don't have to do the ribbon and the fun fur. Of course, I love it. It couldn't match any better. It's got the green in there, some of the orange and the pink. And I really like it together. So I'm going to take a second and hold this up for all of you so you can see it as a starburst or sun ray or whatever. Okay, just a sec. I'm back. See how that works? Just like that. There you go. So it looks like the sun in the center. Okay, we had a winner of the giveaway this week for the July-August knit-along for Iheartchkns, and the person that won this week is Mary Brevig. And Mary is one of my Knitting at the Library former knitters and is now part of the knitting group that meets that I go visit sometimes. And she is Brainwaves on Ravelry, so when I did the random number generator, Mary, you won, and she knit one of my Knitting at the Library part 2 hat. Oh, I should hold that up closer. It's a lace sampler, so you're doing sections of lace. There's a cowl for that as well, and Mary had knit that one also. So she did a 2-color hat, I just think is great. It's so cute. Really cute. There's her cowl right down there. Gosh, I didn't even see that previously. So you're knitting, you know, a ribbing section, and then 4 or 5 different lace sections, and then the ribbing for the cowl, and then the hat coordinates with it. So if you pick the same colorways or coordinating colorways, they go together. So Mary, you won a $25 gift card to Etsy, and I already have your email address. So once you've seen this, I will shoot that over to you because I know you are a full-time listener. You always watch and make nice comments to me. So I'm happy that you won. I have something that I purchased this week, and I think that I'm going to give it away eventually on the podcast, but I thought I would show all of you. I usually don't show things that I purchase, but I have been a member of the Knit Crate Club for just a couple of months now because I picked the Malabrigo Club. You guys know how much I love Malabrigo. So you get a box every other month from Knit Crate, and it has yarn in it, Malabrigo yarn. And this month's yarn is stunning, absolutely beautiful. It is baby silk paca, and it's lace weight. So I got 2 skeins of lace weight, and then I got a pin, which is iridescent to match, as well as stitch markers to match. So it all matches. And then you get this little book that they do, which gives you a pattern that goes with the yarn in knit and crochet. And I took it to knitting to both my knitting groups this week, and no one had seen the Knit Crate box before and didn't really, so they show you what you're getting with the yarn, and then they show you the inspiration picture, which this one is spot on. So look at the bird. Isn't that, like, could that be any closer to the inspiration picture? Stunning. Here's my issue. I'm not knitting shawls these days much, and it's lace weight. So it's 2 skeins, it's like 800 yards of knitting, which it's stunning. But this is the pattern, and although it looks like a shawl, it is closed at the top, and you pick up around that neck. So I think that would be really fun to knit, but I'm not sure I'm going to knit it. So I'm going to think about it because I already have Matt's giveaway this week, but I may give this away on the next podcast. I don't know. We'll see. I have a quick tip or trick for you this week that I found out on a link from a email that I got. And this is what it says. I was recently asked if I'd ever worked out a conversion factor for the amount of yarn needed for a sweater if it were worked at a different gauge than specified in the pattern. I thought, wow, someone has done that? Wouldn't that be awesome? The numbers I calculated for adult sweaters in the Knitter's Handy Guide to Yarn Requirements, I think that's Bud, and came up with the following. If you change from 4 stitches to the inch to 5 stitches to the inch, you'll need 21% more yarn. If you change from 5 to 6, 29% more yarn. And if you change from 6 to 7, you'll only need 10% more yarn. And she says, I can't figure out why the conversions jump from 21 to 29, then down to 10, but they seem consistent that way for all adult sizes. I hope this information helps you if you want to change the gauge of a future project. That's great. I mean, that's really helpful for some people, right? So I will put the link in the show notes, but here's her little blurb that she wrote, yarn requirements and bud. So you can go out. And I get her newsletter, her little weekly or bi-weekly email. So that's where I got it. So there you go. So one of the ways that you can still support me is to comment on the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, or buy a pattern. That's always really nice. Become a pattern collector. I would love it if someone start collecting my patterns. But I did open the thread for the September-October I Rock Knits Designs knit along. So if you have been thinking about knitting one of my patterns, someone did post the Chim Chimney hat, so people are getting ready for Christmas in the thread this time. And I've got a number of hat patterns, several sweater patterns, a shawl, socks. I have something for everybody, I think, out there. So if you're looking for something to knit and you want a chance to win the $25 Etsy gift card, then you can just put your picture in that little knit along thread on Ravelry, and I draw a name every 2 months. And we don't have a ton of people that participate, so you have pretty good chances to win $25 gift card. So there you go. It seems ridiculous to spend that kind of money and then give it away, but I don't want it to sit on my shelves. I guess I could put it up for de-stash. It's so pretty though. I could just look at it. Wouldn't it look nice up there on my shelf? Wouldn't it look great up there? Okay, so I think that's about all I have this week except for Corey's stories. And I have 2. So we got to get started. We went on vacation. It was amazing. I took video, a ton of video for you guys. I'm going to put it at the end. You can choose to watch it or not. Maybe I'll try to put some pretty music with it. So we went to the North Shore. We were on the Gunflint Trail near Lake Superior, north of Duluth, Minnesota. Duluth and Superior, and up by Grand Marais, and then you head north from there. We had gone to the Gunflint Trail back when we were first married a number of times. We were big portage people. I was trying to be the outdoor girl with my husband because he loves to fish. That went away, but he still loves to fish. But we had a wonderful time. We were without Wi-Fi and internet connection. There was no TV or radio in the cabin that we stayed in. There was Wi-Fi in the lodge, in the main lodge, but I have a picture of the cabin and the view from off our deck at the cabin. It's a really small, they're older cabins. They're very rustic, but they're well appointed. You have a full kitchen, and we had 2 bathrooms in our little cabin. It's a 2-bedroom cabin that we rented. It was just lovely. Then we ended up getting rain, so we went to Grand Marais for the afternoon, spent some time down there. But we had been there a day or 2 when we decided that we were going to portage. And I had said to my husband, I will go with you, because I didn't want him to go alone, where you have to carry the canoe on your head and trudge through the woods to the next lake over. So that's what portaging is all about. You can carry whatever you want to carry. You can just walk it, but I didn't really want him to go alone. And the last time I remember going, we had packed a picnic lunch, and it was very romantic, and I think we were newly married. So, we haven't been there in 25 years, maybe. It was a really bad idea. Really bad idea, because it rained in the morning, and so we left mid-morning to go because it cleared off, and we tow the canoe behind our boat. So we rent a little boat. My husband has his own little motor, 10 horsepower motor. So we chug the 4 miles down this little lake to the portage spot, and then you're going into the BWCA. So you cannot take a motor in there with you. And so I have 2 fishing poles and a bucket. And the bucket has a life jacket and a little sonar device and our bait and a snack and a bottle of water, because you can't take plastic or cans into the BWCA. And my husband says to me, I think the portage to the Crocodile Lake is less steep than the portage to Moon. And it's like a third of a mile. Shouldn't be a problem, right? Totally a problem. We're getting older, and now I know that there are people who are in much better shape than I'm in. However, my new knee, and my bad back were not loving the uneven rocks and slipperiness of the mud and the trail, and how my ankles were kind of rolling as I'm carrying this stuff along. And we're true city folk because we forgot the bug spray. You're going into the North Woods with no bug spray. Dumb, really dumb. He's got a canoe on his head, and he has a life jacket fixed to the thing, and the oars are strapped in, they're tied in. And you get, 50 feet into the darker forest, and here come the bugs, right? They're going to eat you alive after the morning rain. It's so dumb. But you're holding stuff, so you can't swat. And so I'm starting to sweat, and the mosquitoes I can hear them, and they're landing, and I just get like this. And I'm trying to, and the fishing poles are jamming into the trees because I have the 2 fishing poles out, and they're hitting the trees, and he has to go ahead of me because I'm going slow now because I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself. And it wasn't as if we were climbing a mountain with loose gravel. It was just pretty uneven, and at one point we came to a spot that was so low-lying that the rangers have put boards across logs that you have to walk on, or you're going to fall off into like quicksand and monsters. I don't really know how he did it because it was very crucky. It was sloppy and messy, and I get 3/4 of the way over, and the tears come, and I just was so, now looking back, I was so mad that I couldn't do it better, but that's not why I didn't. I was blaming it on the mud and the portage and the mosquitoes. And so if I set everything down, I slapped myself, and I was all eaten. And when I picked up the fishing poles the second time around, smart, I turned around backwards, so I carried the reels forward so I wasn't running into the trees on the narrow path. Anyway, we got over there. He came back for me. He had to come back like 100 yards for me, and he's like, I'll help. I'm like, I can do it. That's how I get when I get frustrated. And so we get to the other side, and it's beautiful. There's no one there. There's hardly a ripple on the lake. It's gorgeous. And he says, we can go back, because I have tears, right? And I'm like, oh, no. No. We are not going back. I'm getting in that canoe. We are going to fish because I said I could. So I got in the canoe, and we paddled, and then the wind came up, and so we didn't want to paddle too far because I was afraid that I wouldn't make it paddling with him. I wouldn't make it back, and so it was lovely. I've got some beautiful pictures for you. I made my husband go back on the portage and take a picture of what the beginning of the portage looked like, so you could see how it really wasn't that bad, but it was more than I should have been handling. It was more than I could have done. And coming home, I didn't want to do it at all. And then he offered to strap everything to the canoe and try to make it. He's such a good man. And I was like, no, it wasn't I couldn't carry the 2 things. And it wasn't that I couldn't walk. I just got frustrated because I'm not in the best of shape. I haven't been able to. My back I haven't even talked to you guys about it. But anyway, I'm having a procedure done at my back on September 10th because it's not good. It hasn't been good for a long time. I've been seeing a pain doctor at our orthopedic center, and it'll be fine. It'll get better. It did before, but I don't want to be physically challenged at my age. I want to be, I think we all do, right? I know that at least one of you out there has been talking back and forth with me at length about some medical, physical issues, and it's tough stuff. So he went twice more. He got a smaller canoe, so a one-person canoe, so he got a smaller canoe so that it wasn't as heavy, and he took less stuff, and he went back to Crocodile once and lost his jacket, and then we had to go back down there, and he had to look for his jacket because he had met a young couple going into the BWCA with 2 small boys to camp for 3 nights. They had 2 canoes and all this packed stuff, right? Packed everything. And the dad was going to do portage it all over and back, over and back, over and back to get it all over to the other side. And then the next day it poured. And all I could think about with those were those 2 young boys with their mom and dad sitting over on Crocodile Lake on that beautiful campsite, just probably miserable. I mean, I know people do this kind of stuff all the time, but I'm a fair weather. I want to come back to the cabin where I can take a shower and sleep in a bed these days. So, and then he went to Moon, which is, he said, was much steeper, but he thinks it was shorter, and I might have had better luck there. There were some steps that he remembered in the portage where they had actually built them into the side of the hill, but he said it was a shorter portage and you didn't have to go as far. But it really wasn't about the length. It was just about my ability to handle the length of the portage. He caught a ton of fish. So if you can get into those lakes, no one else is there. They're so untouched. And so he caught, walleye and bass and a northern, and I mean he caught a ton of fish, and that's his thing. That's for him, like knitting. And I sat at the cabin for the rest of the week, thank you very much, and knit on my Rhinebeck sweater, which is giving me great joy. It's turning out. I was really leery about it. It's all over color work. It's a pullover at this time. I'm not showing it to, really yet, because I think it's going to become a design. I think it's going to become, it was my plan for writing an ebook based on this concept for a bunch of projects. And so I need to keep it a little under wraps for now. I will show you, when I get it there, but it's epic. And the reason that it's epic is because it is so Corey. Like, all of you are going to be like, of course you did, right? Like, it's over the top. It's a little wild. It's a little, you have to want to go there. And I'm just giddy about it. And I had been just kind of down about my knitting, hadn't really decided what I wanted to design next and where I wanted to go with it. And I was sitting in that process of what should I do, and I wasn't getting anywhere, and then that was frustrating me. So this is all I'm working on. It's all I want to pick up. I'm just really not doing much else right now these days. I knitted in the car all the way up. I'm doing a lot of ripping and reworking of numbers and things, but it's coming along really well. So that's what I did the rest of the time. So we went up to Grand Portage, Minnesota, which I thought we could spend an entire day at. But there's nothing in Grand Portage except a visitor center and the fort. It's on the reservation, and they have a giant kind of reenactment of what the fort would have looked like back in the day. And they have buildings where they have kind of reenactment people standing in there giving you information about what it was like to cook over an open fire, what it was like to build a canoe, how the voyagers made their canoes, and where they lived. So that was fascinating. But there wasn't anything else in the town. So then we ended up going back to Nanabaju Lodge, right there on the lake for dinner, which is where we stayed the next night. But we stayed in Grand Portage and then took a ferry boat, large boat. I don't even know what they call those because it wasn't a ferry. Anyway, out to Isle Royale, which the people on Isle Royale say Isle Royal, but it's spelled Royale. So I might be saying it wrong, but Isle Royale is a national park. The island itself is 30 some miles long, and there's like a port at both ends, and the ports have like small little places for you to visit, and then you can hike. And there's a little store there and then a ranger station. So we were there for 4 hours. We hiked to a campground area where they said you could see moose. We saw moose. It was amazing. And it was very flat to walk. I had no problem because Ross was really leery and said, you know, we're going to check it out before we go. We're going to find out how steep it is, how uneven. And it was a path, you know, it was a path in the woods that was mostly dirt, and it was no problem. So we hiked down to this campground and stood by a kind of a lean-to shelter where people can camp and watch this moose eat from the bottom of this river for a long time. And I have video of it. It was amazing. And then we took 2 classes while we were on the island. The rangers give talks, and so we took a class on moose, and she showed moose bones and how the moose, there are 2,000 moose on this island, and so it's not super hard to see them. I mean, you can see them. And we were sitting in this class, she's showing the bones, she's got these questions that she's asking, and all of a sudden a moose comes trotting up a trail and around behind us and down into the woods. And the ranger was like, that has never happened before. A moose showed up at moose class. And it was her 49th moose that she had seen in the season since she'd been there in May. So that was really cool. We saw 2 different moose. That was really neat. And then we sat in on a ranger talk about the island and how the island, you know, became a national park, and what different properties it has and why, you know, why it's there. People can stay on, you can backpack in and stay and camp and hike from one end of the island to the other or come back. The boat goes over in the morning and you arrive, and then 4 hours later it goes back. So you can get on the island and off the island once a day. And the cost wasn't terrible to get over there. It's an hour-and-a-half boat ride. It's 22 miles. But there's a lighthouse out there, so I have pictures of that. That was all really fun. We just had a really nice vacation. Then we stayed at Nana Boujou Lodge on the way back. I bought a cookbook with lovely pictures in it. And I would show all of you that, well, here, I'll show you. The outside of Nana Boujou Lodge, and that's the lake right there. And then this is the dining room at Nana Boujou. It is, they hired an artist to design those birds to represent paintings from the Cree Indians. It's stunning. It's so inspiring. I took pictures of all parts of it. The colors were amazing. It really spoke to me and my sense of color with all the orange and the red. It was really neat. The service at the lodge was amazing. There's no internet, there's no television, there are no radios. We had a little fireplace in our room. Our room was really nice, very well appointed for a lodge that was built in 1929. And then the food was amazing. We ended up eating there 2 nights, and it was really good. So I had never been. It's just north of Grand Marais, and I'd been to Grand Marais a number of times, and I had never gone up to Nana Boujou Lodge. So it was just an amazing vacation. We had a really good time. So we had not been away together for a week like that in several years. My husband works a lot and works really hard. He's a good provider. Isn't that what they say? But he doesn't take a lot of time off. So it was really good for him to get away. But story number 2. We came home to a toilet that didn't work. The handle on the toilet didn't work. And a big giant branch down of our tree in our backyard, which is fine, right? Both those things. My husband's pretty handy. He can go buy the thing for the toilet, and we can have the guys come over. We have a gardener guy that we use. We've had him for a number of years. He came to my front door one day, happens to be Hispanic, and said he would like to clean up my yard. And I said, oh my gosh, that would be great, because my husband and I don't want to do it. And I let him do it, and he comes back every year. He's absolutely wonderful. He's really knowledgeable. He works for a landscape company. He just does this on the side. And he's done a bunch of our neighbors too. He, trims I have a big hedge in the backyard, and that's a big job. We don't have a chainsaw, so anyway, he does all that work. So we had to call Guillermo and I said, Guillermo, I need you. But the Friday before we left on vacation, I had a little car accident. Little car accident. This is really hard to admit, but I was in the Dairy Queen drive-thru. Yeah, not what you want to tell everybody. Buying ice cream for my dog. Yeah, again, not what you want to tell everybody. When the lady in front of me overshot the little speaker that you talk into, she was too far forward. Her window was down, so she rolls down her window and she looks out and she goes like this to me. You know, she wants me to back up because she's overshot and I've pulled up behind her. And the board is in front of the little speaker. So I back up, and from my rearview mirror did not look like I hit the person behind me because I'm not that close. But because I have the dog with me, the dog step hit the car behind me. We have a step up for our dog because he's 9, and so it swings out from our trailer hitch. And so I swung it out because I had been working all morning on some knitting pattern work and design and a new website, and it was like 2:30 in the afternoon, and Cody had been kind of driving me nuts and I hadn't given him enough attention, and I said, okay, come on, I'll go get myself a soda. I love a fountain pop, and I'll go get a soda, and then I'll go to Dairy Queen and I'll get you a pup cup. Of course I'm gonna have a ice cream cone too, probably. Let's be real about it. But it had been a frustrating morning. So I back up and crunch. I touched this girl's bumper. Now, I couldn't have been going more than 1 mile an hour, right? Because I'm just trying to back up, and the lady in front of me is like, can you go back any further? And I'm like, no, actually, now I just hit the woman. So I get out, and the girl, young girl, says to me, you're fine, it's all good. And I'm like, do you want to look at what because she doesn't think I hit her either, because she can't see, well, she knows I hit her, but she doesn't think I've done anything so I look at it. So on vacation, I'm dealing with this girl and I'm dealing with my insurance company, and I say to my insurance lady, I think I should just pay, because if I report this to you, my rates are going to go up. And she's like, yeah, you're probably right. And I said, let me talk to my husband. So we get home, and I pay for the bumper. She has to have an all new bumper because it cracked, and it's all one piece, the whole bumper across the whole front of her car. Almost $1,000. Paid Guillermo to haul the big branches out of the back. Pay to get the toilet fixed. Something else happened. If you would have come to my house on the Tuesday after vacation, I would have handed you money. Because I was just going like this, just like, oh my Lord, how can all this have happened at one time? It was crazy. Absolutely crazy, and such a crappy end to a really nice vacation. Oh, and you know what? The worst part of getting in an accident is the crap, how it makes you feel. It was an accident, and my husband was super chill about it. You call your mother. I called my mother. I'm 58 years old. I call my mother. I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell Ross. She's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to tell Ross either. You're a big help, Mom. And he was fine. He's like, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. I wasn't even going a mile an hour. It's just the step up is a big part of the hitch. And so it sits way low to the ground so Cody can get up on it. And I didn't remember it being there, so I just backed up. So anyway, 2 for the price of 1 this week. Corey's stories. Obnoxiously long and ridiculous. My vacation, which most of you don't care that much about, but I had a wonderful time. And then all the things that go wrong when you leave home or come back or whatever. Just looking around to make sure I didn't forget anything. I hope all of you have an accident-free, wonderful Labor Day weekend. This should go up on Monday night, hopefully, and let's just leave it at that, right? Keep it colorful and waddle on.
other one's got his head way up too. Oh,
Nice, yeah.
It's got a red square, is that right?
Yeah, it should be, the number should be.
Yeah, I can see it. Let me stand so I can get an appreciation, because this first part's pretty steep. Yeah. Can get taller in a boat, 30 feet vertical.
Well, we have sock yarn here.